Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to put in the walls on the edges here so our ball or marble doesn't fall off. So let's think about what shape would work well. Well, probably a sort of like a rectangular prism, right? A 3D rectangle. And so if I go up to the game objects again and 3D objects, there's no rectangular prism, but there is a cube. And so if I take that cube and now it's placed it somewhere way off in my game, as you can see here. So of course this would be a perfect one to reset its position, just to start off here. And there it is, okay? Now we could probably move it over a little bit. I'm just gonna grab the move tool and just move it over here, zoom in, press F will zoom in for us. And just sort of to get a little bit of a look at it, maybe move it off to the side. Obviously it needs to be bigger. Now, if we knew the exact value, and I kind of do, but, and we could sort of count out here, what I'm just gonna do though is scale it up. And so there is a scale tool, and I'm just gonna sort of pull it until it's roughly all the way along. Now, one thing that you'll have trouble doing is when you're in the 3D view, it can be a little hard to tell, is it the right size? Like, is it going off the edge? So one thing you can do is say, click on that, and then that will go into the top view. And then this here shows that it's sort of in a 3D or a perspective projection. If you click on that, it goes into the orthographic. And so from there, you can see that it's pretty good, okay? So it just goes off to the edge. We'll sort of have to play around with that a little bit, but for the moment, I'm just gonna set that over there, okay? And I might want to just sort of zoom in a little bit, just making sure there's no gap. So there's a bit of a gap there, and so having it overlay is okay as well. Now I might want to go from a side view. So again, I can sort of click on one of these, and this is the the plane right here. It's a little low. I don't need it underneath, so I'm going to raise it up a bit. And in fact, and you can sort of see here, this would probably be a good one just to be at 0.5. So just manually doing that. Okay. Looking at this as well, probably, it's extending off a little bit. If I wanted to make it perfect, I bet you this would be 20 here. And it looks like it is. So what I'm going to do next is duplicate this. And so what I'm going to do is just Control D, I believe. And you can see here, I've gone from cube to cube 1. And so that allows me to duplicate it. And I will pull that back. And again, the position this time, let me look at the position of the first one. It was 10.37. Again, I bet you if I put that at 10, it will be perfect. And then this one, probably -10 would work out best. Okay, Control D again. That duplicates it for the second time. So I've got 3 copies. Whoops, I don't. Control D. I think I pushed Shift D that time. There it is. Now you got a choice. One thing you could do is you could change the scale, or you could rotate. Either would work fine. I'm going to rotate around the Y-axis 90 degrees. And then, because this is a square, the Z, let me just see here, because that's moving, yes, that's moving along the, along the X-axis. So let's leave this at 0 here, and let's put that set -10. Now, one thing you'll notice is that it does come over the edges, and that's not always the best thing. So what I'm going to do is reduce the scale here. I think I'm going to go for 19. And let me just sort of zoom in. And so I think that is just touching right there. So if you have them over top of each other, that can cause a bit of an issue. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then I guess I'll Control D again. And there's my other one. And again, this should be 10 on this side. And just taking a little look. It looks pretty good there. I'm just zooming in on the camera. Let's just zoom in on this. And I might want to turn back on the perspective. And then just sort of check that edge. Okay, it looks pretty good. I think that will be fun. Now, a couple little housekeeping things, and then we'll just make sure that it works. One is that they're cube 1, cube 2, cube 3. Yeah, okay. Let us rename them. Sometimes it's good to name them with a proper name. So this one, I just want to make sure which way it's going. Yeah, this would be the sort of the north wall. So what I'll call it is, and you can either click once and wait. So I'll call that wall N. And this one should be, just make sure, yeah, that would be wall S for wall south. And this guy, well, that would be the west one. So wall W and, oops, wall E. Not from the Disney movie. Okay, so wall E's there, and we've got them all. Now, what you might be saying to yourself, maybe, is that, yeah, we're getting a few things in our game. And the first thing to think about is that this might be a little bit of an organizational problem if you just sort of continue creating more and more game objects. This is a very simple game. If you had a much more complicated scene, you can imagine you're going to have, tens, perhaps hundreds, even thousands of objects in your scene. And that is not, probably the best thing. So what we will do is we will sort of create a folder. Now, you can't create a folder like we did up here. Remember in our assets, we created new folders. You can't use folders in your scene. The trick is you use a empty. And so an empty is just a place. So, and you can see here, the very top one is create empty. I'm going to click on that. Now, right away, what you'll notice is that there are no other components except a location. The position, position, rotation, scale, which is in the transform. One thing that you should be very, very, very careful about is if you use an empty, that you reset the position. And that's because everybody else's positions is relative to the empty's position. So setting it at 0, 0, 0 is imperative, it's critical. And what I would call this is probably, just to be very clear, this is the wall empty. Okay, it's always good, like I did with the materials, just even telling you what they are, that helps you out. So you'll notice that there is a empty object here. And what I can do is highlight them all. So what I did there, I just held shift, or I could control and click on each one. Okay, but quicker was wall north, shift, wall east, which is the bottom one. And then I can just drag them into my wall empty. And so then it becomes a parent-child relationship where those walls are in the parent, which is the wall empty. What's nice about it is if I wanted to hide the walls, I could click on the empty. They all hide, okay? Bring them back, no problem. If I needed to click on the empty, I could move the whole thing, okay? I don't need to in this case, but that is the potential. All right, so it makes it easy. If I want to get the kid, right, the child, well, then I can just still click in there and still move or whatever I need to do individually, okay? But it's a way of organizing and also a little bit easier when you're working with your game. If I needed to remove the walls, I could, no problems. Okay, one thing I will mention about the walls is that they have a box collider on it. So any object, if you want it to sort of interact, collide with one another, they have to have a collider on it. Didn't mention it with the ball, but if I click on the ball or the marble, it has a sphere collider on it, okay? And that's just the shape of it. And you can create all these different colliders to best represent the object. So what I'm going to do here is just play test it, make sure the walls are blocking the ball. They should, but like I said, it's always good to just double check. So yep, no problems. I mean, I could be, wanting to make sure that they all work, just in case. Okay, looks good. Now, I won't do that here, but if you want, you can create a material and add it to the wall if you want, so that you've got something different there. Otherwise, we're done here with our walls. In the next video, we will actually start making part of the game, and that will be picking up objects.